final breakout session of SSACon 2015. But it's going to be a good one. It's about money and stuff. So we have Sam Erickson, who's the former president of our affiliate, Atheists, Humanists, and Agnostics at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, which if you don't know that group, they're known for having a lot of money. So I think he knows what he's talking about this. So bring up Sam Erickson. Tell us about monies.
Cool. Hi guys, like you said, my name is Sam Erickson. I will be a senior at the University of Wisconsin-Madison this fall. I'm studying economics and political science, and I want to go into politics as a career, possibly going to law school in a few years, but not decided about that yet. For approximately 2 years, I've run AHA at UW-Madison. I recently passed off the leadership baton to Nicole right there. She's our new president, and then Brandon's our vice president, so enjoy your shout out. I did that because I'll be studying abroad in Copenhagen, Denmark in the fall. And that means this is kind of my swan song of like secular activism. So it's a bittersweet moment for me because I've really enjoyed my 2 years, but I won't be doing it any longer. So yeah, thank you all for coming to the last time slot and sticking around. I know some groups have to take off because they have really long drives and stuff, so yeah. Today I'm talking about how your group can get money. So my hope is that this is going to be one of the most useful talks you go to throughout the whole conference. It's not uncommon for secular student groups to work with budgets of $100 or less. I want to change that. I want to educate you guys about how you can receive funding. I want to educate you about all the options you have in front of you. As you realize by the end, it's very important for your group to find funding because it can open up new opportunities for your group, new doors, makes your group easier to function, and just in general, it makes you more awesome. So think about everything you've learned at this conference so far, how to be a badass activist, how to make your group better. Underneath that, if you have funding available, everything you've learned can be improved because money makes everything easier. So I'll get into 3 possible funding sources for your group in this presentation. The first one is university grants. I'll probably spend the most time on that. And then we'll get into the SSA and other secular groups which can provide grants to you. And then lastly, we'll talk about good old-fashioned fundraising. So like Gordon said in my introduction, we're known for having a ton of money. We receive an annual grant of upwards of 60 grand every year, my student group does. That makes us far and away the best funded student group in the country, and we don't have any data on the world, but probably the world. And our funding makes us awesome, and I want to teach you guys how to get that funding so that you guys can be awesome too. So it's my job to educate you about that today. So let's talk about university grants. To my knowledge, public universities have 4 different types of grants that you can get. Event grants, travel grants, operation grants, and annual budget grants. Our budget falls into number 4. We go through a ton of paperwork at the beginning of the year in August to apply for the next year's worth of funding. So for us, it all happens at once, and then we have a whole bunch of paperwork throughout the year to actually spend the money. But applying for the budget itself all happens at once. Event grants go towards things like hosting speakers, hosting debates, other cool things. Travel grants can get you to Secular Student Alliance, to Center for Inquiry's conference, something like that. And then operations grants are typically yearly, but under $1,000, so you can get money for like printing, renting out venues, hosting speakers, and stuff like that. So those are the 4 options on the table, and to my knowledge, every public university in the country has one of those 4 available for you. Most student groups, the best option you're going to have is to apply for an operations grant. It's going to help you, even if it's less than $1,000 with printing and stuff like that. And I can't speak specifically about your campuses, so this part's kind of tough for me because I'll have to talk in general terms about what you can do, but hopefully you get a lot out of this. Final tip for this slide is I want you guys to get your officers involved in university politics. So get people on the student judiciary, get people on your student legislative body, because when you do that, those officers will gain more knowledge about the funding streams that you have available at your university, and it'll make it easier for you to apply for funding. And then whenever you're going through trying to get these grants, be prepared to do a ton of paperwork. And I'm serious, a ton of paperwork. I have with me today the nearly 100 pages of paperwork we have to go through every fall to get our budget. It sucks. Paperwork is awful. Like I probably spent 20 hours, my VP and I probably spent 20 hours going through all of that paperwork, writing all of those justifications for our spending. But it's worth it when you have that funding on the other side. So you just have to get through it, and then you can host these amazing events. It's really important that you do the paperwork. At my university, the biggest barrier to getting those large operations grants is actually just the absurd amount of paperwork that you have to do. A lot of groups don't have like the infrastructure to go through all of that, even if they would hit the requirements. Yeah. So now we can get into the bullet points on this slide. At my university, it takes 6 weeks for everything to process whenever we spend our money. I'm told by my friends at the Illini Secular Student Alliance at the University of Illinois that theirs also takes 6 weeks. So do everything at least 6 weeks in advance, but at least 6. Ideally, you should think about it months in advance, especially if you're applying for event grants, because that money at your university can go really quickly, and you might be too late if you don't plan far enough in advance. So you'll probably encounter a delay like that on your campus. And if you don't do things in advance, you can encounter a situation where you plan this whole event and the paperwork just doesn't get processed in time, so then you personally or your officers have to front the costs and then get reimbursed later, which is awful. Nobody wants to front $1,000 to bring a speaker to campus and then wait a couple weeks afterwards to get reimbursed. So always think in advance, at least a few months. And actually at the University of Illinois, they have a really terrible situation where no matter what they do, they have to front the costs and then get reimbursed. So I was kind of shocked when I learned that when I was talking to them about their system at their university. But be aware that that could be something you encounter as well. And lastly, you will need to whenever you're doing any type of grant, you will need to justify everything that you're requesting money for. So if you're bringing speakers, you have to justify hotel and honorarium and meals reimbursement, everything that Dan got into in the last talk if you're here. Each year when we fill out our paperwork, we're required to attend hearings as a part of the budgetary process. And in the paperwork, we have to highlight the things we want and need according to our university's guidelines. So you'll have to literally justify everything, even if it's only a few dollars. And it's unfortunate. Paperwork's a big part. It's the worst part of getting the grant, but it's necessary so that you can host the awesome events and come to conferences like this and stuff like that. This slide's going to be short and sweet, but this is the most important point I can give you about university event grants and stuff like that. You need to do independent research into what system your university has on your campus. Figure out if your university offers event grants, if you can get travel grants through some student committee or something like that. Do your own research, because you guys are all from different campuses. There's no way I'd be able to research that on my own in preparation for this talk. And then I'm really going to hark on this mantra. Always ask. Never be afraid to ask. Ask your university officials what's available. Do you have event grants? Do you have operations grants? How far in advance should I apply? What are the deadlines? What paperwork is necessary? Always ask. Never be ashamed to ask, even if you think it's a stupid question. So now this is my favorite part. We can get a little technical. What happens if you get denied funding? What happens if you fill out all the paperwork, do all of this work, and then the student committee says, no, they're an atheist group, they don't deserve funding? You can fight that. There's this legal term called viewpoint neutrality that comes out of a case called Southworth versus the Board of Regents. And this actually comes out of my campus. So in the late 90s, a University of Wisconsin student named Scott Southworth sued the University of Wisconsin Board of Regents over segregated fees. His argument was that the university compelled him to pay for speech and expression that he fundamentally disagreed with, which violated his First Amendment rights. The university defended, saying that segregated fees enable a wide range of student speech, creating a marketplace of ideas that furthers the mission of higher education, and that the university creates a forum for students to express themselves. The Supreme Court agreed with the University of Wisconsin, but they did it in a really interesting way. They said that this funding can be made, or has to be made available for all student groups in a viewpoint neutral manner. So they cannot deny you funding for purely being a secular group, for purely being an atheist group. Unfortunately, this doesn't mean that all student groups are automatically going to be given the same amount of money. What this means is that your student committees, or whoever you're having your hearings in front of, can't take viewpoints into account when considering access to a fund. So if you're denied altogether access to a fund, that's a viewpoint neutral, based on the identity of your group. That's a viewpoint neutrality problem. If you get slightly less money than you requested, but you still receive access to the fund, that's not a viewpoint neutrality problem. It's purely about access to the fund. So if you guys get denied funding after going through all the paperwork, doing all the behind-the-scenes work, you should contact me or the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation can fight for you. I can give you more information. So we actually have an attorney here from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Sam Grover. He's a staff attorney for them. I interned for them last summer, so they're a great group, and they will fight for you if you get denied funding in a manner that violates viewpoint neutrality. So that was event grants and travel grants and university grants in general. Second thing I'm going to get into is the Secular Student Alliance and other campus groups. So I don't know if you guys have heard, but you have this amazing resource called the Secular Student Alliance. They have different ways for you to get funding from them. They have Speakers Bureau grants, where you can fill out a simple form online, and then they can give you free money to host speakers from their speaker bureau on your campus. They also have multi-speaker event grants, so if you're planning to do something bigger, like if you're hosting 3 speakers on a Saturday, or even if you're doing a full conference like we do, you can get grants for that. And then hopefully you guys all know that you can get travel grants to come here. And they also have this resource that I found online called the Funding Finder, which you can go on and identify more ways that you can get funding from them. You can find all of these at secularstudents.org, of course. And again, do your own research and always ask. It's on you guys to figure out, to research all of these ways, because there's no way I'm going to tell you exactly how to do everything in this talk. You can also get money from other groups. So in the past, at our conference, we've had groups come and table for us. So Freedom from Religion Foundation has tabled for us at our last 2 conferences. And that's really simple. You say, for X price, you can come table at our event, something like that. I'm also told by my friends at the University of Northern Iowa that you can get money for these groups for other events, but I've never gone through that personally, so I'll read a quote from them. Aaron Friel, their president, says that we really only solicit this sort of outside funding for our largest week, or for our largest event, the Darwin Week. We try to consolidate our funding requests to a single round every year, emphasizing the value of this singular event. We'll keep in touch with the sponsors, ask nicely, provide feedback on the event, and thank them when it's done. So if you're hosting an event and you're struggling to come up with finances for it, contact these groups. It doesn't hurt. Always ask. See what they can do for you. And lastly, let's get to good old-fashioned fundraising. If you aren't able to get money from either of the first 2 options, this is what you're going to have to go through. Even if you get funding from the first 2 options, you should still go through this to get more rainy day funds or whatever. So I've listed some ideas here. You can do bake sales, and you guys get bonus points from me, free bonus points, if you do this late at night. So I found it's really effective to do bake sales at like 11 p.m. on Fridays in an area that's frequented by students at that time, because the type of people who come out at that time are typically more likely to buy baked goods, typically more friendly, you know. You can also do restaurant nights, so you can contact restaurants like Buffalo Wild Wings, and they'll host a night for you where if you hand in a flyer, 20% of the proceeds will go towards your group. I think this would be really cool if you did it for Flying Spaghetti Monster Dinner, like at Noodles & Company. I don't know if they host events like this, but get in contact with them, and then you can host a Flying Spaghetti Monster Dinner where 30% of your people, or 30 members from your group come and eat spaghetti together at Noodles, and 20% of every meal goes towards your group. I think that would be awesome. You can also do a dance marathon. I love this idea too, but my group hasn't done it yet. Basically, you rent out a venue, or you get it for free or whatever, and you dance for 8 hours, or X number of hours, and the last person standing gets like a prize. But you have to charge an entry fee, so like $20 to get in, and all of the proceeds go towards your group. And it's fun. And then the last idea I have is what we did on our campus. It's called Stone a Heathen. And basically, we set up a table in a common area, and we fill up water balloons beforehand, and we invite passers-by to purchase a water balloon for $1 and throw it at us like they're stoning us. So we'll put quotes from the Old Testament saying, like, heathens must be stoned and all of that. So A, it fundraises for your group, and B, it's also an activism event. So you guys could consider that. But now I want to know what your group does. So if you guys have some really cool fundraising events that you've done, let us know. Yeah, what have you done?
At Clarion University, we actually did a Send an Atheist to Church fundraiser.
Right.
For every $20 donated, we sent one of our atheist volunteers to go to a church service of their choice. But we asked the churches in advance
Right.
permission to do it.
Yeah, I've heard of that one as well. What do you guys do?
We teamed up. There's another group on campus called KISS, and they're for animal shelters, and they have like a day at the dog park, and we had a table out there, and we were selling like dog treats and stuff, and that's how we raised money.
That's cool. That's cool. So yeah, be creative with your fundraising events. Come up with something new, and then maybe it'll become like a thing that most secular student alliance groups do. You can start something that is really successful, and then you can give it to SSA, and it can spread like wildfire to every other SSA group. So be creative, and when you have an awesome idea, go through with it. Yeah. Now I want to talk about how to fundraise effectively. In my mind, the single most important thing you do when you fundraise is to get your most energetic and friendly volunteers and officers on board. A fundraising event is going to go nowhere if you don't have people who are energetic about it in the first place. You should also set your expectations, so you can say, we want to raise $300 this semester for our group. Come up with concrete goals like that and do your best to reach them. Also know your audience. So if you're tabling on campus, that's all students. Cater to them. If you're tabling in a more public area where there are adults coming by, maybe don't be so blasphemous, because adults typically aren't as welcoming to those ideas as students are. And then you need to have your team on the same page. So if there's some conflict within your group about an event, either don't do it, or put the people who want to do it in charge and tell the other people, hey, just take a step back on this. Because the people who are doing the event, organizing and all of that, have to be energetic, and they have to be on the same page. And then again, I wanted to open this up to see if you guys had any ideas for effective tabling. And if not, that's fine. Yeah, you, go ahead.
So with all the different ideas that have been floating around in the past 10 minutes or so, which all of them are absolutely fantastic, by the way, would it be too complicated to have 3 or 4 of them at once? As a way to try to pin down everybody, like if you had a stone and or a stone and heathen thing, or if you don't want to stone them, you could pay $20 so that they can go to church, or you know, one other thing. Is it too complicated to have more than one thing as a fundraising option at once, or is it just better to be focused on one thing at one time?
I think my gut says yes, you should focus on one thing at once.
Okay.
But don't let what I say prevent you from doing things. If you think it's a good idea, go out and do it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does work, then you've stumbled upon gold. So, yeah. Yeah, what do you think?
Going off what he's saying, I feel as though if you were to do several events like that, instead of counting them as several separate events, label it as something, as one. if you're stoning a heathen and you're sending an atheist to church, make some sort of topic or some sort of event based on that, like convert to the non-believers or something like that, stoning the heathens and sending the atheists to church, etc.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Okay, and then lastly, since I'm running out of time, that didn't work. Wait, there we go. Another thing you can do, this isn't related to getting money for your group, but it's related to fundraising, so I wanted to throw it in. If you can, you should do a charity fundraiser. Because it's fun. It's a lot of fun if you do it right. It's great for PR. It can make your group look really great if you raise like $500 in a semester or something like that. It does good for your local community. So this last semester we raised about $400 for a local group that helps out homeless people in Madison, Wisconsin. And lastly, if you do an event like this, it can be great for team building. So going out and volunteering in the community can be great for like officer bonding, you know? Even if it's just going out and raking leaves off an elderly person's yard, it can still be great for team building. And another idea for this is like a competitive fundraiser with another group on campus. So like compete against like the Catholic group on your campus or a religious group or even another progressive group. So if you have like a campus women's center or something like that, compete against them to raise the most money. And that's going to be awesome. It's awesome because you raise money for charity. It's awesome because you get to know people from other groups. So, yeah. And I get it. If you want to focus on fundraising for your group, that's what you need to do in order to keep your group alive. Do that. But if you are able to do this, it's great in a million ways, like I just mentioned. So now, what questions do you guys have? I'll stand here awkwardly as long as I want. Yeah, in the back.
What kind of things do you spend the money on?
So our budget, we have individual line items. So we have $5,000 for printing. A lot of that goes towards printing large-scale signs that we put up in like common areas. We have about $15,000 for our annual conference, the Free Thought Festival. We have money for our speaker series, which we host semesterly speakers. So last semester we brought in Henry Reich, who's the creator of the YouTube channel Minute Physics, if you guys have heard of that. In the past we brought in Dan Savage to our conference, people like Dan Barker and other big names. So it breaks up into individual line items and then all adds up. Question? Yeah, Gordon.
What are your thoughts on dues?
So my group, we can't charge dues because of it's a requirement for our funding. Personally, I don't like dues because I think it's a negative incentive towards joining a group. But I understand if you're in dire financial straits, you need to charge like $5 a semester, and that's how you get by. I understand that. So I can't speak for your guys' groups. You need to do what you think is best. Obviously, I'm in a completely different situation. So, yeah, last question right here.
Well, I heard it argued, and I don't know if this is true or not, that dues might produce an effect where someone would be incentivized to be more involved in the group because now they're sort of have
Right.
financial investment, you know.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't really know because my group hasn't charged dues, so I don't have experience with that. Yeah, we can do one more since that was short.
How'd you get the speaker for Minute Physics?
So every year we come up with a list of speakers that we'd like to see. We come up with like 30 big names that we would like to see either at our conference or our speaker series. And then we contact them saying, like, this is when our conference is going to be. We also hold semesterly speaker series. And then hopefully one of the options work for them. Henry from Minute Physics happened to be doing a ski marathon up in northern Wisconsin, so he could make it down really easily to our group. But typically he doesn't tour and do events like that. So we were just lucky with the Minute Physics guy.
Email or?
Yeah, just like Google their name, and then they'll either have a contact form, an agent, or a personal email that you can contact them at. All right, that's it. I think I have to stop now.